Hey, what's up everybody? Nexel here. So this is gonna be another Kingdom Hearts Unchained Kai video, but this one's gonna be about if you should guilt/combine, same name medals. So my personal opinion on it is if it's not farmable, you don't need to combine them. So for example, some of the farmable medals in this game are Waka, and this Goofy, this Pain, this Pence. So those are farmable. And for the farmable medals, I instantly try to combine them if it's possible, just because there's no point in hoarding them if you can always get them whenever you want. So for farmable medals, I'd say get rid of them right away, just so they're not taking up space in your inventory. Now, for premium medals, it's a little bit different. You kind of have to be specific on how you work with each one. So, for me personally, if it's an attack premium medal, I might keep multiple copies of it. So, for example, this Riku here, I kept 2 copies of it just because when I was playing a little bit earlier, like about a month or, maybe even 2 months ago, I needed 2 copies of it so that I could hit the guard armor a lot, because the guard armor had those 5 limbs that you had to take care of to gain the extra turns. I kept the 2 copies of the Riku because this pretty much added up to a Gilted Waka attack, and then 2 of the Kingdom Hearts Riku attacks all in the same turn. So I kept them separately because I needed to use the attack multiple times during the turn. So that's another reason I'd say don't combine the medals if you need to use it multiple times in a turn, like I did these Rikus. Another reason I'd say don't combine your premium medals is if you needed to keep separately a 5-star and a 6-star one. So as you can see here, I have a Diz that's 6 stars and a Diz that's 5 stars. And the reason for that is because back before, I actually used the jewels to buy the avatar boards with that increased Keyblade cost, I had to use the 5-star medals just to keep the cost low. So, let's say I had like a Diz and something like this, just to keep the cost low while still relatively doing the same amount of hits. So as you can see, the difference between a 5 and a 6-star is usually, for attack medals, is usually the number of hits it does. So this one does 7 moderately powerful hits, and this one does 11. So it's kind of a big gap, but I mean, still being able to dish out 7 moderately strong hits with a 5-star medal that allows you to keep your costs down, which is the really, really big, piece of advice here, is really, good just for your purposes. Because let's say I evolved all my medals to 6 stars, and then pretty much, my Keyblade cost couldn't support everything, and I'd end up with an empty slot, which is never, ever, a preferable thing, at least in my opinion. So that's another reason I'd say, don't fuse them. If you needed to keep a 5-star and a 6-star copy, that'd be one reason I'd recommend not fusing them. However, some medals are instantly, worth being fused, unless you're doing it for that 5-6-star thing that I was just explaining. So the medals that are instantly, you shouldn't even argue with yourself why should you fuse these medals, are things that are medals that are only useful for one singular effect. So for example, let me choose a different medal since, it'd be confusing if I use Diz twice. Let's go back to my medals. Who's a good example for this? So, like, Alice. So, I don't have multiple copies of Alice, but if I did get multiple copies of her, I definitely fuse them all together. Again, if you're not doing the whole thing where you keep a 5-star and a 6-star medal separately. And the reason you should fuse medals like Alice, or like Kairi, or buff medals like Aerith, or Abu, I guess Abu does Asuna, it's not a buff medal. But the reason you should fuse those medals together is because odds are you're only ever using the metal for the effect. Like, you're not using it for anything else. So I definitely recommend combining them because it's not worth keeping too many copies of them. Just because, again, you're using it for a one-shot effect. The effect is going to go off whether the metal is 5 or 6 stars or whatever. And odds are you don't need to cast Cure 5 times in a turn. So metals like that, I definitely recommend fusing them just because there is literally no reason to keep multiple copies unless you're doing the whole 5-star, 6-star thing. That's just it's a very, very big thing, especially if you're a free-to-play player, because you probably should prioritize. If you're not prioritizing the avatar boards, you're prioritizing spending your medals on metal packs for better medals. So that would be a reason I would combine metals. Like, that'd be a good reason why I'd combine metals. Another reason why I'd combine metals is strictly because you have 3 or more copies. So as you can see, the Riku I was referencing earlier, it has 5 of the orbs lit up, meaning that at some point or another, I had 7 of these Rikus, and, you know, there's no reason you should keep multiple copies of that, you know. I'd recommend at least keeping 2 copies of a premium medal, but other than that, I really wouldn't recommend keeping any more unless you know, just drew into them. You have like multiple gilded copies. Like, don't sell things that you spent jewels on. But yeah, that's another reason here. Another reason I'd say don't fuse all your metals right away is so that you can maximize the orbs, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but hopefully you get my drift. So what I mean by that is, let's say I have these 2 Rikus here, and let's say I wanted to combine them. I wouldn't combine them until I filled this 3rd orb right here. And the reason for that is just because if I evolved this and combined the 2, then I would need to get another medal all the way till 6 stars until I could combine it with this medal. So rather than, you know, having to unnecessarily evolve medals, I'd keep a lower star copy, just so I could utilize all these orbs before attaching it to the more powerful one. Because, to be honest, the difference with the damage multipliers isn't so great before guilting that, like, you need to combine them all. So yeah, that's another reason I'd say, you know, don't just instantly think, oh, I got a medal, I gotta level it up to the highest level I've got, and then fuse them all together. That'd be one reason I wouldn't do that. This is actually this is a good example. So I recently drew into this 4-star one right here. I'm gonna evolve it to 5 stars and then attach it to this one. And then I could do that 2 more times before I have to, not have to, but like, before I can evolve it and attach it to this. So that's another reason I'd say don't fuse all your medals right away, you know, going back to the whole keeping 2 copies of it. And yeah, I guess one last reason I'd say don't combine a premium medal is because sometimes there are weaker versions of that premium medal that are stronger when gilted. So for example, this Riku here, it has no additional multipliers on it, because I don't have any other copies of Riku attached to it. However, the Waka that I have is gilted out. It's got the extra 19%, and you know, this Waka alone, I believe, is better than just the Riku, because it's going to get the extra 19%, the multiplier is higher. So, and Waka is farmable, you know, so I could have multiple copies of Gilted Waka. So that'd be another reason I'd say if you're really, really unsure if you should combine them, check to see if there's a weaker version that can be gilted, because then you don't have to combine them, pretty much, if you have a weaker version. Because you could just use the weaker version. And you don't have to, you know, guilt yourself saying, oh, you know, I shouldn't have combined them, you know, I needed them separately. So if you're unsure, that'd be definitely a method I'd check out. But other than that, those are all the reasons I would say do or do not combine metals. If you think of anything, throw them in the comments below for people that are looking for advice on this. Otherwise, that's all the advice I got. Till next time, guys, take it easy.